Hello, Nigerians. I want us to have a conversation. Let's check ourselves and tell ourselves the truth. I see President Trump called us a disgraced country. And many people are feeling offended. So I ask, why? Why? How wrong is he to aptly describe us? One of the problems we have as a country is our ability to deny the truth. And you see, the truth is the foundation of patriotism. Just like the scripture will say, when you know the truth, it shall set you free. So we keep denying the obvious fact. Unnecessarily. So unnecessarily, we just want to delude ourselves. What is disgrace? Disgrace is simply the loss of respect and reputation as a result of a dishonorable action. That is disrespect. That is disgrace. Disgrace is when you lost your respect, when you lost your reputation as a result of a very dishonorable action. Look at Nigeria's independence. Just watch the picture of Prime Minister Abubakar Tafawa Balewa's visit to the United States after independence in the 60s. Look at the kind of honor, the kind of respect accorded Nigeria's leader that period. He was received by President Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States. Americans lined up the street right from the airport to the White House to receive Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. He was given honorary citizenship of 3 cities in the United States: New York, Washington, Chicago. He even had the rare opportunity of addressing the American Congress. Which modern Nigerian leader has ever been accorded that respect? So did we not lose our respect? Countries that started with us, like Malaysia, have gone very far, like Thailand, like South Korea. We want to deny the fact that we're not a disgraced nation. And let me tell you why we're a disgraced nation. Let me tell you, a very disgraced country in the language of Trump. Just yesterday, Chad, in the northeast border of Nigeria, Chad blocked her borders with Nigeria because terrorists are fleeing Nigeria into Chad because of President Trump's threat. Can you imagine? Chad that should be looking up to us like a big brother is covering its borders, blocking its borders from fleeing terrorists because terrorists are meant to stay in Nigeria, not their country. Is that not disgraceful enough? It's just like your neighbor having a kid who is used to stealing, and when you see him going around close to your house, you begin to lock your door. That is a disgrace to the father of that boy. That is what is happening right now. If we are not a disgraced country like Trump said, why should Nigeria be having her citizens in Cameroon as refugees, in Chad as refugees? Why should we in our own land be refugees? My people in Yerota in the IDP camp in Mokodi, my people from Ude, from Yerota, from many of the local governments in Benue, many of the local governments in Plateau, are in the IDP camp in their own country. Is that not a disgraced country? If we are not a disgraced country, why, for goodness sake, should the likes of Shetima be the vice president of Nigeria? A person who had a notorious reputation of harboring a terrorist. Kabiru Sokoto, you remember? Kabiru Sokoto was a wanted terrorist, but he was found in Shetima's lodge in Abuja. This same vice president Shetima came to the United Nations. Instead of him to talk about Nigerian security concerns, he was busy talking about Gaza. So you could see the mentality, the jihadist mentality. Nigeria had enormous insecurity problems. And he came to the United Nations 2 months ago and was talking about Gaza. The humanitarian crisis in Benue and Plateau alone is 10 times more than what is obtainable in Gaza, both in terms of the number of people in the IDP camps and the number of casualties. If we are not a disgraced country, like Trump said, for goodness sake, why would the lives of Pantami be made a minister? Pantami it was who declared fatwa on a student of ATBU around 2004, and they stoned that student to death. A confirmed Islamist, a jihadist, was made a minister in a secular country like. If we are not a disgraced nation, why would in these modern times, student like a lady like Deborah Joseph will be stoned to death like snake? Even Saudi Arabia and UAE do not in modern times stone people to death in the name of Sharia. They stoned a woman in Kubwa to death. They stoned a woman in Kanu. They stoned a woman in Niger. Christians. If we're not a disgraced country, why would terrorists in our own country, within our own forest, kill people from Borno to Zamfara to Benue to Plateau to Kaduna? Everywhere. In hundreds. Why? And they are still, which country will have that number of terrorists in their own country, within its borders operating, if it is not a disgraced country? If we are not a disgraced country, tell me any country in the world where people, communities, protested against soldiers and called for the withdrawal of soldiers from their communities, that soldiers have been complicit in the killings of their people, that soldiers have been joining the terrorists to kill their people, or passive when their people have been killed. From Benue State to Plateau to Kaduna, communities upon communities have protested for the withdrawal of soldiers. In other countries of the world, when soldiers are deployed to an area, the people become very assured and very secured. But in Nigeria, the people stand up to protest for the withdrawal of soldiers from their community. So if we are not a disgraced country, tell me, if we are not a disgraced country, which country of the world will you travel with a passport and you'll be scrutinized more than any other person? Our passport has lost respect because of extreme bad leadership. Extreme bad leadership. If we are not a disgraced country, which kind of people will stand up and start protesting that they don't want terrorists to be killed in their country? That these terrorists are killing us, just allow them. Like the way the Northerners are doing, the Northern elites and the Sultan and the traditional rulers and Sheikh Gumi. If we are not a disgraced country, why would the lives of Sheikh Gumi even be seen? Even Saudi Arabia deported the guy this year, March this year, went for Hajj, and he was deported at Jeddah International Airport back to Nigeria. His terrorism record is so big that Saudi Arabia don't want him in their own country, the headquarters of global Muslims. But he's a Nigerian. He plays a prominent role in the polity in Nigeria. So if we are not a disgraced country, tell me. If we are not a disgraced country, how can terrorists operating, killing, terrorists that are responsible for killing hundreds and thousands of Nigerians, come out on hundreds of motorbikes with RPGs, AK-49, different kind of armaments, and come for a so-called peace meeting with Nigerian army there, Nigerian police, other security agencies, and government officials, and the terrorists will give the government officials their conditions and even threats, and they will receive salute from soldiers and police, and they will come in military fatigue, and people will line up the road welcoming them, and they will come with their own sirens, honking non-stop, carry out a meeting and go back into the bush with all their arms. Tell me any sensible, decent country, a working country, that records such, if we are not a disgraced country. if we are not a disgraced country, why should we be having some of the kind of leaders we have that have very notorious reputation with link with terrorism? Aline Dume, Vice President Shetima, Issa Pantami, most of the emirs, up to the Sultan, if we are not really a disgraced country. So people look at our records and they call us that name because it is a succinct definition and description of who we are. So why are we angry with Donald Trump's appellation of Nigeria as a disgraced country? If we are not a disgraced country, why will terrorists in the nation's capital, in Kuje prison, why will terrorists invade the prison on motorbikes? Over 300 terrorists broke into the prison, a maximum security prison, and released 200 other terrorists in the nation's capital. And they went scot-free and no one was rearrested up to this day. If we are not a disgraced country. So it's like in the United States, Al-Qaeda coming into a prison situated in Washington, the capital of the United States, breaking it and releasing over 100 Al-Qaeda detainees. Is that possible? Is that possible? So why are you saying we are not a disgraced country? If we are not a disgraced country, why would a governor like Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi say all the Fulani of this war have Nigeria as their headquarters? They are free to stay in Nigeria as citizens, no matter where they come from. Central African Republic, Mali, Mauritania, Burkina Faso, Guinea, their headquarters. Nigeria is their refuge. If we are not a disgraced country, why will radical Islamists, Fulani terrorists especially, be riding on an antiquated promise, a promise of 1804 by Odman Dafodio that he must dip the Quran in the ocean? And so they have to kill people to fulfill Odman Dafodio's promise. Is that not disgraceful enough? If we are not a disgraced country, why would over 270 of my kinsmen, majority of my relatives in Yerwata, be killed in June 13, June 14, and the president could visit Benue State 5 days later and will stay back only in Makurdi, in the government house in Makurdi, and address people, a congregation in the government house that is constituted by 90% of the people who came from Abuja. More than 90%. Governors, ministers, even the elites from Benue who were in that meeting, all came from Abuja. Yerwata is 25 minutes drive on the federal highway. 25 minutes drive from Makurdi. The president could not go to the epicenter of the Fulani attack, massacre, and genocide of June 13 and 14. The president could not visit it. That's not what George Bush did after 9/11. That's not what Jacinta Ardern did in New Zealand after the Christchurch attack, when they killed over 14 Muslims in their mosque. That's not what Churchill did during the Second World War. That's not what Jens Kastenberg did of Norway, who became NATO Secretary General, when they killed people in the island of Iowa in Norway. Just about 60 people. They went out to that spot. They addressed people from that spot. They addressed the nation from that spot. They inspired a nation. The president just came to Makurdi and was talking of 2027. I was talking of his Benue friends. And that's all. Yerwata was just 25 minutes drive. He went back and they were using the excuse of flood in Akaleku. Akaleku, that is from Yerwata to Akaleku before Lafia. It's another 25 kilometers. You know? So is that not disgrace enough? The president, with all the thousands of killings that has happened in Plateau and is still happening, the president never visited Plateau State until when the mother of the APC national chairman died. As sad as it is, He went just for the burial. As much as the chairman is our friends and we appreciate the president's visit, what happened to the thousands of people that are being killed daily in Plateau? The president never visited them. So are we not a disgraced country? A lot of people are watching these things. The kind of killings that demands national emergency. We don't even hear anything from the presidency talking about killings until when there's a reaction somewhere, like from abroad. So are we not a disgraced nation? So this is a call to check ourselves, to have a sober reflection. We're so disgraced enough. We have to take a sober reflection and rework our nation, rebuild our nation on the foundation of patriotism. And patriotism starts with truth. We have to acknowledge our faults and our frailties as a nation. At this point, we're disgraced. We're disgraced. We need to baptize ourselves. May God bless Nigeria.
In the heart of the city where stories unfold, Gentle Media TV shining bright and bold, bringing news from the corners of the globe, connects us together, no matter the road. Watch us rise, hear the voices roar, unity and diversity, together we soar.